Archangel Michael says your ability to forgive has made you blind to a repeated cycle of spiritual theft. Someone has been taking from your peace, your time, and your energy, then calling it love. This message reveals what they are really after. You were meant to hear this. There is a sound from heaven, not thunder, not wind, but the clash of a sword forged in truth. Archangel Michael has unsheathed it again, because your soul is under siege and your eyes have been veiled in mercy. You are the kind of soul that loves even when broken, forgives when betrayed, and tries again even after ruin. But there is a cost to carrying divine compassion without discernment. That cost is what you feel now. You've been emptied slowly, yet the emptier was smiling. They didn't storm in like a thief in the night. They crept in wearing affection, cloaked as family, friendship, even romantic devotion. What you felt as loyalty was often spiritual manipulation. They used your goodness as a gateway. Your grace was not met with healing, but with harvest, their harvest. They took from your peace and called it connection. Archangel Michael hath been watching it all unfold. He has warned you before in dreams, delays, unexpected silence, sudden emotion. You brushed them off as passing moods or coincidences. But now he speaks clearly. This is your awakening moment. You've forgiven again and again, but in doing so, you've also ignored the theft of your light, the depletion of your energy, and the silencing of truth. Type I am rising to get blessing 5678. What they called love was really extraction. Each apology was a soft chain. Each time they said, "You're too sensitive," they were dismantling your spiritual shield. What they labeled as closeness was actually control disguised as care. And you, with your angelic heart, believed it was genuine because you loved them more than you checked the vibration behind their words and intentions. You were not blind because you were weak, you were blind because you were faithful. Faithful to the vision you had of their potential. You saw the wounded child inside them, not the shadow doing the stealing. And yet, that shadow fed off your compassion. They grew stronger from the light you didn't guard. You thought love would transform them, but they used that love as a license to drain. This is not to shame you, but to shake you awake. Your heart is golden, but even gold must be guarded. Archangel Michael now draws near not just to protect, but to reveal. Because you are at the edge of another cycle. And unless you rise now, unless you see now, you will be led into the same loop with a different name, a different voice, but the same draining spirit. The day that cycle breaks. Type I am chosen to get the blessing 1427. Archangel Michael has seen this cycle stretch far back into your timeline, further than your memory even dares to reach. It began with your innocence, when your spirit first encountered betrayal cloaked in care. Perhaps it was a parent who praised you only when you performed. Perhaps a friend who rewarded your silence, not your truth. And so, without realizing it, you equated love with loss. That blueprint has followed you like a quiet ghost, attracting energies that mirrored your earliest wounds. Each new connection came wearing a different name, but the story was the same. They take, you give. They confuse, you forgive. They disappear, you excuse. And then, like clockwork, you start shrinking yourself again, thinking this is just what love looks like when it's hard-earned. But Archangel Michael says, love was never meant to be earned through exhaustion. You were not designed to sacrifice yourself to feel worthy of connection. Divine love uplifts, it aligns, it revives. Yet what you've called love has kept you tired, conflicted, and unsure of your own worth. It's because you're not in love. You're in a soul transaction, orchestrated by an unhealed spirit. Type I am rising to get blessing 7790. Spiritual theft doesn't always look like violence. Sometimes it looks like codependency. It sounds like someone needing you so badly that you feel flattered into captivity. They shower you with attention at first, not because they honor your soul, but because they study your patterns, what you crave, what you lack, what you forgive. They learn how to mold their chaos into your comfort zone. And then, the pattern begins. They create the wound, then offer the remedy. They cut your spirit with their words, then bandage it with affection. They isolate you emotionally, then call it us against the world. This is not connection. This control. They are not nurturing your spirit. They're feeding off it. But because you're naturally a healer, you keep thinking you're fixing them. You were never assigned to save them. Your healing is their own task, not your life's burden. And here is what Archangel Michael wants you to know. Every time you rescue someone who refuses to rescue themselves, you delay your own evolution. You were not sent to this earth to be a perpetual sacrifice. You were sent to rise, and help others rise only when they are willing. Type I am shielded to get the blessing 3661. Some of them never truly wanted healing. What they wanted was a host. Someone they could attach to, borrow light from, and leave when they were full. They admired your peace, so they brought their chaos. They saw your discipline, so they brought disorder. But it was never about union. It was always about siphoning. They didn't fall in love with you. They fed off you. And you allowed it, not because you were foolish, but because you were hopeful. Hopeful that this time would be different. Hopeful that your loyalty would birth their change. But hope without clarity becomes a trap. And Archangel Michael says this is the season where that trap ends. No more sacrificing your peace for someone else's storm. No more baptizing toxicity in the name of loyalty. You cannot keep dying on altars that were never built for you. Your soul is not currency. Your time is not disposable. And your compassion is not a playground. Archangel Michael is now surrounding you with the fire of revelation, not to burn you, but to burn off what's been clinging to you. That which is exposed now must leave. That which stole from your light must return what it owes. Type I am protected to get the blessing 4533. Archangel Michael now reveals something deeper. This was never just about people. It was about the spirit behind the people. The pattern of theft you felt over and over wasn't always orchestrated by the individual. It was often driven by a familiar spirit, a generational stronghold, a subtle demon clothed in charm. It uses vessels to enter your life and drains you with affection, guilt, and counterfeit intimacy. This spirit has studied your soul through timelines. It knows your triggers. It knows how easily your heart bends when someone shares their pain. It knows how your forgiveness is infinite and how you'll ignore the red flags if the person seems wounded enough. But what you must realize is that not every wound deserves your medicine. Some wounds are infected with manipulation. When Archangel Michael stands by your side, he sees what you do not. How your light attracts not only the broken, but the cunning. Your aura has been a beacon, not just for angels, but also for predators wearing poiki. And here's the truth. Some of them never loved you. They just loved how loving you made them feel. It wasn't about you. It was about the reflection you gave them. Type I am awakened to get blessing 5842. So when they praised you, it wasn't from sincerity, it was from need. When they cried, it wasn't always truth, it was strategy. When they said forever, it was often a placeholder until they found a new host to feed on. You were not blind, you were just genuine. and they counted on that. That's why every time they drained you, they called it love. Every silence, every absence, your fault. That spirit used your empathy like a leash. Every time you felt guilted into staying, into explaining, into fixing, it was another link in the chain. They didn't have to trap you in a cage. They trapped you in your own heart. And because your love was pure, you kept justifying their behavior with compassion. But Archangel Michael says, compassion without boundaries becomes a gateway for spiritual theft. You must now break agreement with that spirit. It has made you think that suffering is noble, that being drained is romantic, that chaos is passion. But this is the lie. The longer you stay in it, the more your divine gifts corrode. You lose vision. You lose clarity. You lose power. And the spirit wants exactly that, because a dimmed light is easier to control than one burning with truth. Type I am breaking free to get blessing 6789. You've blamed yourself for too long. Told yourself maybe you misunderstood. Maybe you were too sensitive. But what you felt was real. You saw the inconsistencies. You felt the drain. You questioned the way your peace always felt punctured. But you kept covering it in grace. That's what the Spirit counted on, that your mercy would mute your voice. But today, Archangel Michael gives it back. Your voice is returning, and with it your vision. The fog they cast on your intuition is lifting. The games they played with your memory are ending. You don't owe them another explanation. You don't owe them another drop of your clarity. If someone wants your love, they must come clean and whole, not as a taker seeking to repackage your light as something they earned through deception. You're no longer required to fight for crumbs, not emotionally, spiritually, or energetically. You are allowed to require alignment. You are allowed to ask, does this relationship pour back into me? Archangel Michael reminds you, you were not made to be a well for the thirsty who refuse to dig their own. You are not their water. You are the reminder that water comes from divine work. If this word has stirred your spirit and ignited boldness within you, consider showing your support with a super thanks of $20. Your generosity empowers us to continue releasing prophetic guidance, clarity, and strength to those journeying from betrayal to blessing. You can also support our mission through PayPal donation by clicking the Support Here link in the video description. Every contribution makes a meaningful impact and helps us keep creating and sharing with you. And don't forget to subscribe to this channel so you never miss a moment of divine instruction, heavenly insight, and spirit-led guidance designed for your breakthrough. Type I am restored to get blessing 4321. Archangel Michael doesn't just bring warnings, he brings weapons, and he brings strategy. Now that your eyes have opened, it's time to exit the cycle. But hear this clearly, exits from spiritual bondage aren't always loud. Sometimes, the most powerful departure is quiet, when your heart no longer bleeds for the ones who feast on it, when your soul closes the door without the need for validation. They won't expect it. They've grown used to you apologizing first. They're used to your explanations, your grace on repeat, your soft tone even when you're torn inside. They believe your silence is permission. But Archangel Michael says this is your moment to reclaim spiritual authority. You do not owe the thief a reason why they can't return. You owe yourself the closure of truth. Forgiveness does not require access. You can forgive someone and still block them. You can pray for someone's growth while no longer being their stepping stone. This is the sacred balance of a healed soul, compassion with distance, mercy with protection, and your ability to exit without bitterness, without performance. is your sign that your light is no longer for sale to thieves. Type I am unshaken to get blessing 9876. But you will be tested. Understand this. That same spirit may try again, through another face, another voice, another form of need. It might even be the same person, cloaked in what seems like growth. But discernment must now lead where emotion once did. Archangel Michael says, watch their fruit, not their flowers. Watch their patterns, not their promises. Time unmasks all deception. The enemy doesn't mind you leaving the cage, as long as you leave the door open behind you. And many do. They exit, but they keep a string attached, just in case. A wave. Just one more conversation. But spiritual healing isn't passive. It requires severing, fully and finally. You can't hold on to what once harmed you and still claim you're ready for God's next assignment. This is why Archangel Michael stands beside you with the sword of separation. This isn't just about people. It's about vibrations, attachments, and soul contracts you never meant to sign. Every yes you gave from guilt, revoke it now. Every bond you tolerated out of fear, cut it now. Every apology you offered just to keep peace, release it now. You were never made to bargain your light away. Type I am cleansed to get the blessing 3648. There's a version of you waiting beyond this cycle, a version untouched by emotional leeches, a version that no longer needs to perform peace. This version doesn't question their worth when someone leaves. They don't fear solitude because they know solitude is sacred. They don't settle for energy that confuses them. They sit in stillness until heaven aligns someone whole to their wholeness. And from that posture, you rise, not just healed, but guarded. Not with bitterness, but with divine discernment. The enemy doesn't fear your gifts. It fears your boundaries. That's why it sends familiar spirits wearing empathy. But now, you know better. You feel it when your soul tightens. You sense the manipulation beneath sweet words. You catch the subtle guilt wrapped in false love. Archangel Michael doesn't just call you free, he calls you dangerous to darkness now. Because you're no longer a light they can manipulate. You're no longer a healer who forgets to heal themselves. You're no longer a forgiver who turns a blind eye to theft. You are a sentinel. And from this day forward, you protect your peace like the sacred flame that it truly is. Type I am reborn to get the blessing 4477. Archangel Michael stands with you not only to expose the theft, but to recover what was stolen. You see, spiritual theft doesn't just steal your peace in the moment. It delays your calling, your growth, your emotional clarity, your divine appointments. It clutters your path with debris you didn't cause. But heaven does not leave debt unpaid. God keeps receipts. And now, the debt is being reversed. Everything they drained, your joy, your strength, your time, your trust, is being recalibrated and returned to you. Not through the same vessel, but through divine alignment. Archangel Michael says this next season is not about chasing closure. It's about reclaiming ownership. Ownership of your voice, your energy, your destiny. You are not a kahuli. You are a witness of spiritual restitution. There is a sound in the heavens, a breaking open of blocked blessings. Because the enemy delayed you, yes. But it could never deny you. Delay is not denial. And now that you've exited the cycle, now that you've cut the tie, acceleration begins. A weight is lifting. The cloud is clearing. And your gifts, the ones that were muted by distraction, are returning louder, stronger, and refined. Type I am restored to get the blessing 8212. But this recovery won't be quiet. Because the enemy hates exposure. It thrived when you were blind, but now you see. So you may feel pushback, random chaos, strange emotional shifts, even old voices trying to return. Don't fear it. It's just proof you step out of their reach. The noise comes when you leave the grip. The shaking comes when the chains finally break and rattle to the floor. Archangel Michael wants you to remember this. You are not fragile. You were just bound. Now you are unbound and becoming. And everything you thought you lost in the name of love is not only coming back, it's being multiplied. You will look back and realize they didn't steal the best of you. They distracted the beginning of your best. But now, the beginning becomes birthing. This isn't just healing, it's divine compensation. The sleepless nights, answer, the confusion, learn, the drained energy, refilled, the closed doors, you opened better, and the clarity you've prayed for is no longer distant. As here, you'll start hearing your intuition clearly. You'll know who to trust, where to move, when to pause. Heaven is not vague. It is specific when you're aligned. Type I am renewed to get the blessing 3583. You were not crazy. You were not overreacting. You were discerning, but they trained you to distrust your discernment. Now that trust in self is returning, you'll no longer second guess when your spirit tightens. You'll no longer negotiate when someone violates your peace. You'll no longer need permission to protect your boundaries. You're reclaiming spiritual authority over access. Some of the people you once felt weak around, you'll soon feel nothing at all. That's healing. Some of the conversations you used to replay in your mind, you will forget without effort. That's deliverance. And some of the spaces that once felt like rejection will now feel like redirection. Because your healed heart doesn't crave what your broken heart used to beg for. This is what Archangel Michael has waited for you to finally walk not in apology, but clarity. You're no longer the same. The version of you that once endured their draining behavior is gone. Now you don't just forgive, you release. You don't just survive, you transform. You don't just move on, you rise, radiant, full of power that cannot be drained again. Type I am reclaiming to get the blessing 4426. Now that you've reclaimed what was stolen, Archangel Michael turns your gaze inward, not to reflect on pain, but to honor your transformation. What once broke you, now builds you. What once confused you, now clarifies your worth. The grief you once wore like a second skin has lifted, and in its place stands a warrior draped in light, sharpened by truth, guarded not by fear, but by wisdom. You are no longer accessible to energy that wounds you. This is the power of a guarded soul, not one closed off, but one spiritually discerning. A soul that no longer entertains love that comes with emotional fines. A soul that understands, access to me is sacred. My presence is currency. My peace is royalty. And not everyone deserves an invitation to that table. Because here's what Archangel Michael teaches. Peace is not passive. Peace is a fortress. It is a state you defend. And now that defense have been activated within you, no more negotiating with confusion. No more reasoning with red flags. You've been upgraded by your pain, refined by your release, purified by your decision to finally choose you, not selfishly, but sacredly. Type I am sacred to get the blessing 6513. The most dangerous version of you has arrived, not loud or violent, but peaceful and aware. You see now. You sense motives before words are even spoken. You detect manipulation cloaked in kindness. You no longer melt under guilt tactics. And you don't explain your no. You don't soften your discernment. You don't apologize for walking away from what once drained your divinity. This version of you no longer craves rescue, because you've become your own rescue. You no longer wait for closure, you carry closure within. And you don't settle for almost healed people who use your empathy as a shortcut to avoid their work. You want wholeness. You want alignment. And if it doesn't feed your soul, it no longer gets access to your time. This radiant self didn't arrive overnight. It was forged in the quiet decisions, the silent exits, the nights you cried but still chose peace, the days you stayed silent, not out of weakness, but because the battle wasn't worth your spirit. And now heaven has responded. Archangel Michael didn't just walk you out of a cycle. He's now ushering you into your new assignment. Type I am chosen to get the blessing 7834. You are now being prepared for something far greater than survival. You're entering the realm of spiritual impact. Your healing is no longer just about you. It's about the others who are still bound, still dimming their light for counterfeit love, still calling chaos passion. They need your voice, your clarity, your testimony. And you will no longer whisper. You were born to reveal truth. Archangel Michael stands over you now, not in warning, but in commissioning. He says, go forward, speak boldly, love wisely, guard fiercely. You are no longer in the grip, you are in your grace. This is divine release. The chains have fallen, the fog is lifted, and the blessing on your life is awakening in full strength. This isn't just a new chapter. It's an entirely new scroll, and every line is authored in gold. Heaven is writing now with your freedom as the ink. The enemies that once mocked your softness will now see it as your sword, and those who thought you'd return will watch you rise instead, because the one who forgives and learns becomes a threat to every spirit that once called them a target. You are no longer prey. You are now a divine protector. Type I am radiant to get the blessing 8990. You've walked out of darkness, but you haven't just escaped, you've elevated. Archangel Michael watches now as your spirit steps into position, not as a survivor, but as heaven's intercessor. You were not only freed from the cycle, you were chosen because of it. What tried to destroy your light has only refined your assignment. You are now heaven's voice in flesh. This elevation is sacred. You've paid for it in tears, patience, endurance, and obedience. This is why your words now carry a different weight. They echo with authority. They cut through fog. You're not just someone who talks healing. You've lived it. And that experience has made you dangerous to every spirit that thrives in manipulation, confusion, and emotional lack. Archangel Michael says, your clarity is contagious. You'll walk into rooms and shift atmospheres without speaking. You'll write, speak, share, and those still trapped in soul theft cycles will begin to feel discomfort, their chains reacting to your freedom. But don't shrink. Don't soften. This is what light does. It disturbs darkness before it delivers it. And you are a walking disruption now. Type I am rising to get blessing 9262. Heaven has trained you in silence. While they mocked your absence, while they thought you were breaking, you were being equipped. Your tears weren't wasted. They watered your anointing. Your loneliness wasn't punishment, it was preparation. You weren't rejected. You were redirected. And now, you stand in the fullness of what they said you'd never become. This is why Archangel Michael stayed near. Because the battle wasn't just external, it was spiritual. And only a heavenly warrior could cover what was happening in realms unseen. Now, the veil is torn. You don't just see people, you see spirits. You don't just feel pain, you discern its root. And your yes to healing became a threat to generational dysfunction. There are people you haven't met yet who will heal because you chose to rise. Your freedom is a ripple effect. The light you protect now is not just for you. It's a lighthouse to others still sinking in storms they think are normal. You will remind them. Love doesn't drain. Peace doesn't confuse. And loyalty doesn't come with guilt. You will be the interruption they need. Type I am the light to get blessing 7727. But stay anchored. This assignment requires intention. The enemy now knows you're awake, so it may still try to send distractions that look like destiny. Remember what you've learned. Not every emotionally intense bond is divine. Not every we have history connection is holy. Not every voice that sounds like love is carrying light. Test the fruit. Test the consistency. Listen. Your discernment is not just intuition. It is your spiritual compass. And Archangel Michael says it must now guide your yes, your no, and your next step. You cannot be casual with your light anymore. You are marked. You are sealed. You are one who walks with a heavenly escort, and your choices must reflect that weight. No more throwing pearls to those who crave your fall. Now, your life becomes a declaration, not of revenge but of reclamation, not of ego but of elevation. You'll walk past old conversations without needing closure. You'll see old faces and feel nothing but quiet strength. Because when you heal deeply, you no longer need proof of growth. Your peace announces it before your mouth ever opens. You've become your own sign. Type I am the proof to get the blessing 6144. Archangel Michael leans in now, not just to remind you who you are, but to reveal what you've become. You are no longer just a healed person. You are a witness, a vessel of divine recovery, a walking sanctuary for others who still think their brokenness disqualifies them. You are heaven's evidence that what was stolen can be returned sevenfold and sanctified. What once silenced you now fuels your voice. What once drained you now empowers your discernment. And what once made you feel small now confirms how vast your light really is. This is the paradox of divine deliverance. The very thing sent to destroy you becomes the soil that birthed your purpose. That betrayal didn't bury you. It revealed your unshakable foundation. You've learned that love isn't proven in chaos. You've learned that forgiveness doesn't require re-entry. And now you understand this. Spiritual theft always begins with emotional seduction. They make you feel seen but not safe. They fill your ears but not your spirit. They pull on your empathy but leave you empty. But no more. The chapter is closed, sealed, and done. Type I am complete to get the blessing 8550. Your rise isn't accidental. It's engineered by heaven. You didn't just survive. You agreed with heaven's plan, even when it hurt. That obedience is rare. That endurance is sacred. That willingness to choose solitude over spiritual slavery is what separates the called from the commission. And you are no longer just called. You are active in your assignment. This assignment is layered. You will be called to speak light into people who still call their cages home. You will recognize the patterns in them because you've lived them. Don't run from it. Don't dim your fire to make others feel warm in their darkness. Archangel Michael says, you must shine unapologetically. You are not like to entertain. You are like to liberate. And liberation won't always feel welcome. Some will resist your energy because it confronts the spirit within them. They'll call you too much, too sharp, too serious. Let them. You didn't come this far to become palatable. You came to become prophetic. Your life is no longer just a path. It's a pattern breaker. A holy interruption. A line in the sand between bondage and freedom. Type I am the line to get the blessing 7903. Don't expect everyone to celebrate this version of you. Your silence once served their comfort. Your confusion once protected their control. But now your clarity convicts. Your boundaries reveal their lack of integrity. And that discomfort they project onto you is just their spirit recoiling from your healed authority. Don't take it personal. Take it as confirmation. You're on divine track. You're not cruel, you're clear. You're not distant, you're discerning. You're not broken, you're better. And Archangel Michael reminds you, don't feel guilty for not wanting to bleed for those who pricked you repeatedly. That's not lack of love, that's wisdom. And wisdom is the fruit of all you've walked through. Wear it like armor. Speak it like scripture. Live it like flame. You've been asking, what now? The answer is, walk boldly. Walk like someone whose light can no longer be siphoned. Whose yes is rare and whose spirit is holy ground. Whose forgiveness is powerful but protected. You don't owe them another chance to take from you. You don't owe them another moment of confusion. You owe yourself the gift of staying free. If this message resonates with you and you feel moved to support, consider giving a super thanks with contributions of up to $20. Your kindness helps us bring more powerful content your way. Also, if you'd like to support what we do, you can make a difference by donating via PayPal using the support here link in the description of this video. Every contribution helps us keep creating and sharing more with you. And if you haven't already, subscribe to this channel for regular prophetic guidance, deep spiritual insight, and powerful words that keep you aligned with heaven's rhythm. Type I am holy ground to get blessing 6002. You once laid yourself on altars built by others, altars where your peace was the sacrifice, your kindness the fuel, and your silence the incense. But those days are over. Archangel Michael now declares, you are no longer the offering. You are not meant to bleed for people who refuse to bandage themselves. You are not meant to burn just to keep others warm in their chaos. There is a difference between carrying someone in prayer and carrying them in burden. You were never asked by heaven to be anyone's emotional mule. What you once called support was often spiritual weight that kept you from soaring. They called you strong because you held their mess, not because they ever honored your capacity. But now, that imbalance is being reversed. Because true strength isn't found in suffering, it's found in sacred boundaries. And now you know this. Anyone who gets angry when you protect your peace was never loving you. They were using you. Your absence reveals what your presence concealed. Your no exposes the truth their flattery tried to bury. And your new clarity, it makes them deeply uncomfortable. Type I am the flame to get the blessing 7111. That discomfort is part of the purification. As you rise, the atmosphere around you must adjust. Some people will fall away, not because you pushed them, but because they cannot breathe in the frequency you now carry. The air of healing is heavy with truth, and those addicted to lies can't survive it. Let them go. Let them be. You were never their healer. You were their mirror. And mirrors don't lie. You reflect in what they refuse to face. Their dependence on you was never holy. It was strategic. It wasn't about love, it was about access. But Archangel Michael says, no more. The door is sealed. The gate is closed. And you are not required to reconsider when heaven has already released. You owe no explanations for your elevation. They'll call you changed, and they are right. You have changed, but not in the way they imply. You've changed from bleeding to blessing, from being used to being chosen. You've changed from playing small to speaking boldly, and that change is permanent. You're no longer waiting to be chosen. You know you are chosen, and you walk like you know it. Type I am claimed by heaven to get blessing 4744. You are no longer trying to convince people of your worth. That version of you died when you broke the cycle. Now, your energy announces itself before you enter a room. Your light speaks without shouting. Your presence makes spaces recalibrate. Why? Because healed people shift dimensions. You're not adjusting anymore. You're ascending. Let that be your new standard. And this ascension isn't pride. It's obedience. Obedience to the healing you fought for. Obedience to the truth you didn't ignore. Obedience to the boundaries heaven commanded you to enforce. You cannot lower your frequency to accommodate old familiarity. Some things you loved will no longer resonate. That's not loss. It's liberation. Let your growth offend those who would grow. You are no longer someone who questions if they are too much. You are someone who finally understands they were never too little. I tried to make you doubt yourself because your power terrified the insecurity in them. You weren't hard to love. You were hard to use. And now that you see clearly, you are untouchable to every spirit that once drained your light. Type I am untouchable to get the blessing 8825. Archangel Michael surrounds you now, not just as a watcher but as a defender. You're no longer navigating this journey alone. The battles you once fought in silence now echo through heaven's courts. And with every step you take away from the false, the draining, the manipulative, divine protection expands around you like a shield of light forged in truth and sealed in obedience. Because what you've broken free from wasn't just a toxic pattern, it was a spiritual contract, a soul-level agreement you never meant to sign. One that said, I'll love you even if it costs me myself. But Archangel Michael ripped that script from your hands. You don't have to sacrifice yourself to be valuable. You don't have to carry their wounds to feel whole. You are already full. Now that your clarity has risen, the enemy will try subtler ways to breach your peace. It may come as urgency, as second chances, as unfinished conversations disguised as closure. But you are now sealed in wisdom. You know the difference between a divine test and a demonic trick, between healing and manipulation, between connection and codependency. Type I am defended to get the blessing 7299. Because clarity has taught you that not all open arms are safe. Not every I miss you is sacred. Not every return is a reason to reopen the door. Some are bait, hoping to reattach to the light you now guard with your life. And Archangel Michael wants this etched on your spirit. You are not obligated to entertain familiar pain just because it knocks with a softer voice this time. Your evolution has made you unrecognizable to those who only knew the version of you that was tired, forgiving on demand, and always available. And that unrecognizability, it's divine. You're supposed to feel distant from your past. You're supposed to no longer resonate with their chaos. That's the evidence of elevation. Heaven writes who you are in every layer. You're not required to explain that to anyone. This next version of you speaks through action, energy, and atmosphere. They'll see the shift in how your eyes no longer lower, and how your presence no longer seeks approval. in how your voice no longer hesitates when setting standards. Because this time, you are no longer questioning your value. You are protecting it relentlessly. Type I am fireproof to get blessing 5681. The enemy fears this version of you. Not because you fight louder, but because you walk in certainty. Your clarity is a sword. Your peace is an alarm system. And your presence exposes every hidden agenda without you needing to say a word. That's divine authority. That's what Archangel Michael has been preparing you for, this realm of inner knowing, where deception dies at contact. Heaven has not just watched your healing. It has marked it, assigned it, and now you're walking into spaces that once triggered you, without flinching, facing people who once strained you, without reacting, standing where you once collapsed, without breaking. You've outgrown the version of yourself who made pain a home. You've become someone who refuses to bleed there again. And don't be surprised when new doors open. Doors that require no begging, no bending, no betraying your own spirit to enter. These are doors aligned to your growth, not your guilt. These are opportunities not based on manipulation, but on your momentum. Archangel Michael says, watch what comes now. Because freedom doesn't just cleanse, it also attracts what's divine. If this message is piercing your spirit and helping you step into divine truth, consider giving a super chat or super thanks today. Your support of $20 helps us continue creating powerful, prophetic messages like this one. We are grateful for every seed you sow. Also, if you'd like to support what we do, you can make a difference by donating via PayPal using the support here link in the description of this video. Every contribution helps us keep creating and sharing more with you. And be sure to subscribe to this channel if you haven't yet. You'll receive regular prophetic guidance, exclusive content, and spiritual tools to keep you aligned with your divine path. Type I am the gatekeeper to get blessing 3223. Now that the gates have been secured and your peace has become sacred ground, Archangel Michael brings your attention to what's coming. This isn't just a season of protection, it's a season of possession. You're not just walking away from theft, you're walking into inheritance. What was delayed, dimmed, and drained is now being released into your hands, fully and freely. Heaven doesn't just remove, heaven restores. And in your case, restoration is multiplied. What was taken in confusion returns through clarity. What was lost in darkness is recovered in light. But this isn't a transaction based on effort. This is a divine reward for obedience. You said yes to healing when silence was easier. You chose release when revenge was tempting. And now you're being trusted with what others fumbled. With influence, peace, opportunity, and authority that carries eternal weight. You will walk into rooms where your presence settles storms. People will feel safer without knowing why. That's the evidence of a soul who carries heaven. You no longer enter environments. You transform them. You're not waiting to be seen, you reveal. Type I am aligned to get blessing 8765. This inheritance isn't only spiritual, it's practical. The time they stole, God is redeeming it with acceleration. The peace they drained, you now guard it with divine instincts. The love you gave to the wrong ones, it's returning through people who don't just receive your heart, but reciprocate it. This is the beauty of heaven. It gives back with interest what hell tried to subtract in silence. You'll begin to notice doors opening effortlessly. Not because you're trying harder, but because you're no longer bound. The ties that blocked your elevation have been burned. You're not operating from survival now. You're operating from spiritual ownership. Every yes you now offer carries heaven's weight behind it. Every step you take is marked by divine precision. And those who once overlooked you will feel the shift. They'll sense that they no longer had access, not because you hate them, but because heaven revoked the invitation. Your discernment isn't arrogance, it's alignment. And those who can't respect your boundaries will remove themselves, confused by the light they can no longer manipulate. Type I'm restored with interest to get blessing 5094. Your journey has not just purified you, it has qualified you. You are no longer the version of yourself that tolerated red flags just to feel connected. You are no longer the person who explained away emotional theft just to keep peace. Now, your peace is powered by purpose. You do not fight for clarity, you walk in it. You don't chase energy, you match it or leave. There is a stillness around you now, holy, unbothered, untouchable. That stillness is heaven's stamp. You are no longer available to confusion. You are no longer accessible to those who can't honor your healing. And most importantly, you are no longer vulnerable to the very spirit that once used love as a disguise to rob your calling blind. Archangel Michael wants you to know this. Every lesson, every loss, every ounce of pain was not for nothing. You carry revelation now. Your heart hath been made fireproof. Your mind has become sharp with discernment. And your spirit no longer bends to stay love. You now understand. Real love recognizes you without asking you to disappear to be worthy of it. Type I am walking in reward to get blessing 6657. You've been walking with a silent burden for years, a weight that had no name but lived in your chest like a ghost. A heaviness you called love but felt like pressure. Every smile you forced, every second chance you gave, every time you stayed silent just to keep peace, those were withdrawals from your soul. But Archangel Michael declares, the account has been closed. The debt is paid. Because what you endured wasn't just emotional, it was spiritual debt collection. They fed off your presence but never invested. They borrowed your hope but never returned it. They took your time, your care, your stability, then made you feel like you were the unstable one. But truth has come. The contract is broken, and heaven has erased the balances they tried to leave on your spirit. You are no longer bound by guilt. You don't owe them understanding. You don't owe them softness. You don't owe them continued access to a heart they never honored. Your compassion was never the problem. Their consumption was. You were not too much. You were too radiant for their intentions. They didn't leave because you failed. They left because your healing made them small. Type I am debt-free to get the blessing 4911. Your worth is no longer negotiable. You no longer need them to say, I'm sorry, to move forward. You don't require closure because clarity has given you wings. And when you have wings, you don't stay grounded waiting for someone to recognize what they were never built to hold. You rise. You move. You ascend. And you do so without dragging the dead weight behind you. This is where the elevation becomes effortless. Not because you're escaping, but because you finally released. You're no longer editing yourself to fit their expectations. You're no longer dimming so others feel less convicted by your growth. Your radiance is no longer hidden, it's holy. And Archangel Michael says, you are now licensed to live in fullness with no emotional tax applied. From this place of clarity, your decisions shift. You no longer choose based on fear of loneliness. You no longer accept connections based on history. If it doesn't align, it doesn't remain. You bless it and walk away. You release it and don't return. Because this version of you understands that love without mutual effort is just performance. You're done performing. Type I am emotionally rich to get blessing 7338. They will notice. They already feel the gap. The energy they used to pull from no longer answers. The softness they weaponized is now protected by divine armor. They'll try again, not because they changed it, but because your light was addictive. But Archangel Michael has placed a sword at the door. Your soul no longer recognizes what it once confused for comfort. This is the cost of growth. Your healed self will be a stranger to those who thrived off your brokenness. But let it be. You did heal to return to old roles. You healed to be reborn. To show others what freedom sounds like. To walk into rooms and awaken courage in those who forgot their own worth. You are now living proof that peace is not passive, it's earned. To walk on, not out of arrogance, but out of assignment. You don't just leave old patterns, you lead others out. Your story carries maps. Your scars hold keys. Your clarity now becomes blueprint for someone else's escape. And that's why the enemy fought so hard to keep you blind. Because once your eyes opened, the chains broke for more than just you. They broke for generations. Type I am the breaker of cycles to get blessing 3001. You didn't just escape the cycle. You ended it. Archangel Michael now declares over you, the gate has closed. Not with fear, not with revenge, but with righteous finality. What began before you was born. Patterns of emotional debt, soul theft, and spiritual manipulation now stops with you. You were the chosen vessel, the one strong enough to say, this ends here, and ends with me. This isn't just your victory, it's your legacy. Your children will feel peace they didn't earn, because you did the work. Your lineage will be rewired, your bloodline restored. Where there was confusion, now there will be clarity. Where there was silence, now truth will reign. And all because you decided not to normalize what traumatized everyone before you. You no longer carry inherited burdens. What your mother swallowed in silence, what your father avoided in shame, what your ancestors tolerated in survival mode, you have confronted in wisdom. You were the one who said, no more pretending, no more begging, no more bleeding to feel loved. And because of that decision, generational patterns are now obliterated. Type I am the gate to get the blessing 7640. There is a new sound rising from your lineage. It's not chaos, it's clarity. Not grief, but grace. Because you opened your mouth when others stayed quiet. You set boundaries where others bowed. You demanded reciprocity where others settled for crumbs. And heaven saw it all. Every silent decision you made in your room echoed through spiritual dimensions like thunder. You were never crazy for feeling out of place. You were never weak for crying over invisible tension. That was the war in your DNA, trying to resolve what had been repeated for generations. But Archangel Michael reveals, you weren't just breaking a pattern, you were redeeming blood, turning confusion into clarity, trauma into wisdom. You are now the root of a healed tree. Your children, spiritual or physical, will drink from that tree, and they won't even know the battles you fought to plant it. They will feel the weight of having to prove their worth in unworthy hands. They will bleed in the name of someone else's dysfunction. They will love without losing themselves. All because you chose truth when it cost you everything. Type I am the healed root to get blessing 5777. You're not just a cycle breaker. You're a blueprint writer. You're the first of your kind. And what you carry is now spiritual inheritance, lessons forged in silence, in fire, in prayer. You don't preach it, you live it. Your stability is sacred. Your solitude is a fortress, and the clarity that once felt like a curse now sits like a crown upon your spirit, because you finally understand your role. You were never meant to be the emotional sponge for broken people. You were never created to absorb damage disguised as love. You were anointed to create divine destruction, to dismantle the lies, to expose the spirits behind the masks, to walk in fireproof truth, even if it cost you approval. And now, that truth moves through you with generational consequences. Do not doubt how far you've come. Your rest is holy now. Your laughter is prophetic. Your presence, charged with angelic backup. The very rooms that once drained you will now feel tight when you enter, because the spirit that once tolerated you now trembles before you. This isn't ego. This is elevation. Your vibration doesn't bow. It reveals what cannot rise with you. Type I am the first light to get blessing 4110. Now that you have sealed the gate, now that the generational curse is dismantled by your no more, Archangel Michael ushers you into the most sacred phase of all, the final separation. This is where the echoes die, the temptation to return dissolves, and your soul becomes unavailable to anything that once held your peace hostage. The spirit of entanglement no longer has access. You are finally fully free. But freedom is more than absence. It is presence. It is the fullness of your identity returning to you without interference. You no longer need to shrink to keep the room calm. You no longer carry stories that don't belong to your timeline. What happened before you is no longer your inheritance. What was handed to you through pain has now been returned to sender. You owe trauma nothing. This is why Archangel Michael still stands near. Because even in freedom, there is temptation to look back, not out of desire, but out of habit. When you've lived in emotional survival mode, stability can feel suspicious. But heaven wants you to trust this calm. You're not waiting for the next betrayal. You're not holding your breath anymore. This peace isn't fragile. It's fortified. Type I am fully free to get blessing 9004. And yet, some will try to knock again. Not just people, but patterns. The memory of how it felt to be needed. The comfort of rescuing someone. The old identity of being the fixer. But that is no longer your assignment. Your worth is not tied to being drained. Your value is not proven by how much you can endure. You no longer need to suffer in order to feel connected. If it doesn't bring rest to your spirit, it is not your responsibility. You are not God. You are not their savior. You are a vessel, not a vault. What is divine will not require your emotional extinction. It will meet you in mutuality, in reverence, in reciprocity. Let this be your barometer now. If it costs your peace, it is too expensive for your healed spirit. Some may accuse you of changing. Let them. Because you have. You are no longer in the business of explaining your glow. The old you needed validation. The current you carries vision. The old you needed closeness. This you needs clarity. You don't grieve closed doors anymore. You celebrate what God didn't allow back into the temple. Type I'm protected by light to get blessing 8426. And yes, it is a temple now. This body, this mind, this soul. You have become sacred space. And sacred spaces cannot host chaos. You've made too many silent investments into your wellness to allow someone else to bankrupt you with guilt. Let them mislabel you. Let them project. You don't need to defend what heaven has already judged as clean. You are not on trial, you are in purpose. This is where you begin to walk differently. Not with arrogance, but with assurance. Every step is measured. Every yes, prayed through every environment, discerned. You are no longer hungry for attention. You crave alignment. You are no longer chasing potential. You now wait for evidence. That's not bitterness. That's evolution. This is how angels walk after fire. And Archangel Michael smiles at your steps now. Because you've gone from asking why did they do that to me, to declaring that would happen again. You've graduated. Not in pride, but in power. Your soul isn't just healed, it's trained. And the thief who once stole with ease now knows, this vessel has guards, this temple has gates, this light does not flicker anymore. Type I am untouchable truth to get blessing 5115. You've become more than healed. You've become a standard, a spiritual benchmark that heaven can trust. Archangel Michael watches you now not as a broken one crawling through recovery, but as a fortified soul, walking in alignment, carrying weight without compromise, guarding peace without guilt. This is what the battle was always about. You're becoming. The enemy didn't fear your survival. It feared your clarity. Because when someone like you sees through the manipulation, the theft ends. When someone like you reclaims their voice, the cycle collapses. And when someone like you walks away, the entire structure built on silent suffering falls like sand. You were the foundation they stood on, but that ground has shifted. Archangel Michael says this version of you has heaven's signature. You are trustworthy with truth, disciplined with vision, boundaried with compassion. You don't break your own heart anymore just to keep someone from breaking theirs. You've learned that love without accountability is spiritual theft in disguise. And now you require what you always deserved. Type I am heaven's standard to get blessing 6518. People may still try to test your softness. They'll send guilt packaged in apologies. They'll say they've changed, but their actions will still beg you to do all the emotional labor. But the new you no longer picks up what isn't yours. You don't clean up messes you didn't make. You don't fix hearts that were never meant to be yours to carry. Your clarity is now currency. You exchange confusion for quiet. You trade emotional chaos for divine pace. Your presence is no longer available for trial runs. If someone wants your energy, they must come whole or not at all. You've done enough, almost enough, maybe they'll grow. You're not dating potential, you're hosting only what aligns with peace. And heaven will test this alignment, not to punish but to prepare. You may feel moments of isolation again. Not because you're being rejected, but because you're being preserved. God hides those who are ready for promotion. And Archangel Michael reminds you, silence is never emptiness. It's where heaven sharpens those who carry generational purpose. Type I am alignment in motion to get blessing 7331. Don't confuse divine isolation with abandonment. You are not being withheld. You are being withstood, strengthened in the stillness. You are being conditioned to hold higher realms of glory, more weighty assignments, deeper wisdom. And when you emerge, your presence will no longer just inspire, it will shift outcomes, because your purity can now carry prophecy. You are no longer someone who survives emotional storms. You are someone who now commands the atmosphere. You walk into rooms and brokenness can't hide. You speak, and deception loses its disguise. You smile, and those bound by shame feel hope again. This is not performance, it's presence. You are heaven's response to generational drought. Archangel Michael now says, you're ready. Ready to be seen. Ready to be sent. Ready to be fully used, fully trusted, and fully lit without the fear of being extinguished again. The enemy can't find a crack anymore. Your boundaries have become bricks. Your discernment has become armor. Your joy is no longer fleeting. It's rooted in divine identity. Type I am God's chosen clarity to get blessing 8192. Now that heaven has trusted you with the weight, Archangel Michael extends what was always promised: full spiritual authority. This isn't authority based on position or platform. It's not dependent on applause or agreement. This is the kind of power birthed in private warfare, the kind that cannot be shaken because it was forged where no one applauded but God. You walk now as one who knows. You don't second-guess your discernment. You don't apologize for sensing the atmosphere. You feel shifts before they speak. You recognize imbalance before it reveals itself. Because the same compassion that once made you a target has now become your compass. And that compass is never wrong when it's anchored in truth. This is what spiritual theft tried to steal: your inner compass. The confidence to trust your sensitivity. The divine instinct that told you something is off, even when their words sounded sweet. But now, you no longer override that voice. You obey it. And Archangel Michael says that obedience is what turns authority into a force darkness cannot counterfeit. Type I am divine authority to get blessing 6017. They may still whisper. Old patterns may still knock. But you will open more, not because you're cold, but because you're covered. Covered in light. Covered in fire. Covered in a kind of peace that scares manipulative spirits. You've stopped explaining your silence. You've stopped excusing your retreat. You no longer enter rooms trying to be understood. Instead, you carry understanding within. You've been taught by heaven, not in theory, but in fire. Not through books, but through battle. And what you now carry isn't just wisdom, it's weaponry. Your words are swords. Your boundaries are battlegrounds. Your stillness is strategy. You become the very thing the enemy tried to prevent you from becoming. You are not just healed, you are equipped. That's why you intimidate those still bound. That's why the room shifts when you speak from a place of truth. You're no longer trying to make them comfortable. You're here to challenge the spirit behind the comfort. You don't smooth the waters. You part the sea. Because you know who walks beside you now. Type I am heaven's storm to get blessing 4820. Archangel Michael doesn't just stand behind you. He walks with you. Every door you open from here will be guarded. Every step you take will echo with purpose. You are not trying to find the path. You are the path. For others who are lost, for those still entangled, they will look at your life and see what clarity looks like when it's protected by unshakable peace. And still, remain humble, not small, not silent, but rooted. Because true authority doesn't need to shout. It doesn't need validation. It just is. You've become what heaven trusts to enter hard places and carry light with no fear of it being stolen again. You build gates. You seal breaches. You've become a walking rebuke to every counterfeit spirit. You are the fulfillment of quiet prayers, the manifestation of sacred decisions, the ripple effect of a lineage interrupted, the first sound of generational peace, and the last echo of tolerated confusion. Archangel Michael has seen your becoming, and now heaven broadcasts it. You are ready. Ready to lead, ready to guard, ready to reign. Type I am equipped for glory to get blessing 3374. You've lived long enough trying to be understood. You walked rooms wondering if they felt your heart, if they'd ever see your intention, if your softness would finally be met with shelter. But now that you walk in divine authority, Archangel Michael says, you no longer need earthly approval to validate a heavenly assignment. You are no longer begging for belonging. You belong. Because when heaven approves you, rejection feels like redirection. When heaven surrounds you, abandonment becomes protection. The people who left, the ones who ignored your boundaries, the ones who mocked your silence, they were all part of the pruning. They didn't take anything from you. They cleared the room so your light could expand without opposition. You now walk in a different frequency, one where the only affirmation that matters flows from the throne of grace. You don't need likes, applause, or agreement. You have fire in your spirit and clarity in your step. You stopped seeking permission from people who were never qualified to recognize what God hid inside you. That was never arrogance. It was spiritual maturation. Type I am heaven approved to get blessing 4181. Let them talk. Let them wonder where you went, why you changed it, how you became so bold. They never knew the weight you carried in silence. They never saw the nights you wept but chose obedience anyway. They never heard the voice of Archangel Michael whispering, keep going, when you wanted to give in. You didn't get here by luck. You got here through refinement. This atmosphere you now carry is not temporary. It's permanent. It follows you into every space. It sets the tone before you speak. It filters out the unauthentic. It exposes intentions before they manifest. That's why some can't stay near you anymore. Not because they hate you, but because your presence conflicts with their comfortable dysfunction. Your healed self no longer bends to fit rooms built for your brokenness. You walk in truth. You speak with measured clarity. You pause when others would panic. You no longer rush to fix what doesn't align. That's not coldness. That's wisdom earned through fire. And now you wear that wisdom like armor beneath your skin. Divine, steady, resolute, undeniable. Type I am atmosphere shifter to get blessing 6677. Your elevation will continue to separate, not as punishment, but as positioning. You are being lifted into places where your integrity matters more than your image, where your boundaries are honored, not tested, where your discernment is respected, not dismissed. And to get there, some things had to be removed. Even people you once cried to keep, now you praise God they left. Because now you can hear yourself clearly. Now you trust what your spirit says. Now you wake up without the fog of emotional noise. Now peace isn't something you pray for, it's where you live. And those who enter your life now must come correct. Because your peace is no longer negotiable. It is your birthright. Guarded by heaven. Protected by you. Archangel Michael affirms, you didn't miss anything that was meant for you. What left could not carry your next level. What didn't choose you was never ordained. You've released more than people. You've released the fear that said you were too much. That fear died in the fire. And now you rise, whole, ready, trusted by realms you used to pray into. Type I'm rising clean to get blessing 5596. You've reached the end, not just of this message, but of the cycle that once silenced your power. You've walked through exposure, through release, through recovery, through redefinition. And now you stand whole, unrecognizable to the version of yourself that once begged for love in all the wrong places. But that version no longer leads your journey. Archangel Michael stands beside you, not as a rescuer, but as a witness. Because you did what few dare. You faced the theft, traced its roots, and broke it without needing applause. You healed in silence. You separated in wisdom. You reclaimed what was stolen without becoming what tried to destroy you. You walked out of the fire without losing your softness, but sharper. Now you walk in divine rhythm. You no longer react. You respond. You no longer reach for what costs your soul. You receive only what matches your peace. Your energy is protected by sacred filters. Your future unfolds through pure alignment. The people who meet you now will never understand what it costs to become this clear, this calm, this covered. You are no longer the broken-hearted. You are the breaker of burdens. The one who ends with hurt generations. The one who walks away not out of bitterness, but out of boundaried healing. You're not a victim of love. You are the full definition of it. Because true love never robs, never drains, never guilts. And now, you are that love to yourself first, and others second. The war is over. The peace is permanent. And the world will know you not by your past, but by your presence. You've become the standard. You've become the storm breaker, the gatekeeper of light. And those who once misused your heart will see that the access they took for granted hath been sealed by heaven itself. This is closure. This is clarity. This is your commissioned rise. If this message is piercing your spirit and helping you step into divine truth, consider giving a super chat or super thanks today. Your support of $20 helps us continue creating powerful, prophetic messages like this one. We are grateful for every seed you sow. Also, if you'd like to support what we do, you can make a difference by donating via PayPal using the support here link in the description of this video. Every contribution helps us keep creating and sharing more with you. And be sure to subscribe to this channel if you haven't yet. You'll receive regular prophetic guidance, exclusive content, and spiritual tools to keep you aligned with your divine path. I am the proof of heaven's restoration to get blessing 9999.